When you get into the CEO role, you're really the company. And I think a lot of leaders have never taken that burden on themselves. I think behind humility, one of the number one attributes of a successful and effective leader is going to be curiosity. You have to seek it out. I say that, the ultimate job of a leader is to win the hearts and minds of their people and help them succeed. It's like, how can you make the greatest contribution to the world? Positively impact as many people as much as you can.
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Welcome to this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the CEO's role from an identity perspective, from a leadership perspective, and from a succession perspective. I was at a conference just this morning where we were talking about the peak 65 zone. Right now, we're at a phase until 2027 where every day, 11,200 people will be turning 65. Why do I bring that up? Because of just the nature of succession planning for family and privately held businesses, for leadership teams. I can't tell you the countless teams I talk to that talk about the aging workforce, as well as the leaders that are going to be navigating their own succession and exit out over the next year to 5 years. And that plays a role in you as the CEO, you as the next executive up and the next leader. So today I get the pleasure of welcoming Travis Dommert to today's episode with One Digital. I've had the pleasure of hearing Travis speak 4 times. I believe today was the 4th time that I had the opportunity to hear you speak on a variety of topics. And one of those topics was with a CEO roundtable that I am in. And you were talking about the role of the CEO. So when you were talking about that, I said, once you're back in town, I need to invite you to our studio. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So one of the things I'm most curious about is your vantage point of all of the countless organizations and thousands and probably 100,000 people plus at this point that your organization supports and employs, just diving into the nature of leadership. So when we talk about the CEO, what are the challenges that face the CEO from a professional standpoint? And then we're also going to get into the personal aspects as well.
Great. Yeah. Excited about it.
Yeah. So as we do this, we're going to unpack kind of 2 sides of the coin, right? So a CEO gets promoted into that first CEO spot, maybe because they were a fabulous head of sales, a fabulous general manager, a fabulous head of marketing, or a strategist, or maybe they were a CFO and decided to move into leadership role. And that brings, I believe, what I was calling an identity crisis, because I'm no longer that role. I'm now responsible for all parts. So share with me a little bit where you've seen leaders transition and step into that role. What are some of the key attributes and things that you believe is most important?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Seeing that from different vantage points, I think the one thing that they have in common, at least for clients of One Digital, is that we work with a lot of small to mid-sized companies. And so in many cases, these are private companies. In many cases, they're family-owned companies. And so it's even more complicated than just the role. Sometimes it's, you're the daughter, or you're the son, or you're the second son, or whatever. You have all of this baggage coming with you. But when you get into the CEO role, you're really the company. You personify what this organization is about, whether it's a business or even if it's a nonprofit. And I think a lot of leaders have never taken that burden on themselves. Founders have. But those who are promoted or hired into the CEO are suddenly trying to figure out, am I this job? Am I the company? What is the scope of my responsibility, and how do I be successful at it? And especially if you're not the founder, then there is so much of the culture and the identity of that organization that is tied to the founder. an organization I joined previously did an extensive values study. They'd grown for years, but they finally decided we should put some of this in writing because we're about to go through succession in the next few years. Okay. And we want to make sure we're clear on how we got successful so that when we have the handoff, we don't lose what we have. And what that CEO was really surprised by was that as much as I think he wanted the values to be about his team, they were largely about his childhood. And he was surprised. He was shocked. He didn't want that. He's like, no, I'm not going to tell you what our culture is. I want to learn what our culture is. I want to learn what's most authentically us. And what they found was what's most authentically us is you. And it creates a huge burden for the next person to come in. Do they have the latitude to change that, or are they supposed to reinforce it? So anyway, I think this is a very layered conversation about the challenges of stepping into the top job.
Yeah. We spent, it feels like a decade plus on our own succession. And one of the exercises that we literally did for our own business was we had our outside board of advisors. They recommended we go spend time with our top 5 clients in a family business that's been around for, at that time, 40 years. You have decades-long relationships, right, that are formulated. Some of those were very much with Dad. And then we were all his supporting cast. That part of like, what is your greatest fear, not just for the team, but for the customers? And we did the same exercise internally. So we did an external voice of customer. We did an internal, what we called voice of team.
Love it.
And got feedback. And what we also found, what he identified, was that if we're going to help our succession go well, which is what we do for other clients, we need to actually listen and mobilize. So we started building the team I needed in order to lead prior to that transition. And what we also knew was that some of these clients, like any great client relationship, if you don't go meet other people outside those key executives that you know, your relationship probably will retire with Dad because it's with me and I'm going to retire too, is the feedback we got several times. But the other thing that really bubbled up through that was the additional things we do, which was the unexpected blessing from the whole exercise, was our board. Again, they kind of commissioned this advisor to go out and do this research. And the advice came back and said, hey, you know that thing we also spend about the second half of every single board meeting on? The clients want more of that. So that led us to launching another brand. So I kind of sit in the seat of founder of one and carrying the torch of my parents, being with a company for 40 years at the time, and trying to manage that. So there's tension in all of those things. There's things that I do very different than my father. We believe it's with the same value set of that all humans matter, and that we love people and we want to love people like Jesus loved people, and we want to spend time and build relationship and draw people close and be there with the leaders and connecting them with the resources necessary. But that whole transition of listening, I have this very distinct blessing to have worked for a father who did this for a living, because I have a lot of friends whose parents didn't, and the quicker they could get out of the business, the better. Right. So just so much energy around the next thing. And then, and I want to dive into, as you're working with those family businesses, at what point do you say to them, like, this is going to work and here's the action steps and here are the things you need to work on, or I don't know if this is going to work and here are the reasons why?
You know, I'm thankful. I can't think of right now a leader who came to that realization and said, wow, this is just not me.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, on one level, you could hear this story, Mike, and you have such personal experience with this, but somebody could hear that and just think, wow, so it sounds complicated. And it is, but it's predictably complicated, because what you're talking about is the nuance of the role versus the person, and how much of your effectiveness as a leader is coming from personality versus skills versus values. And so that is something that we try to help every client with whenever we're in the role of helping them try to get the right people in the right seats. I'm sure you do the same thing. is we try to really pull a job apart and understand what are the skills necessary to be successful in this role. And does the person know how to do those things?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the great thing is they're usually, depending on the patience and the rate at which they've got to take over, there's time to develop skills. At least skills can be developed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are behaviors, which you may have tendencies because of personality, but then you get into values and say, okay, the values, we ideally want a reflection
Mm-hmm.
of what the organization values, the individual values. They don't have to be exact pairing. Like, I don't know that somebody was literally born to work in a particular company, but you absolutely want to make sure that the values of the organization are deep and abiding in the person.
Sure.
Nonetheless, one CEO is going to be different from the other. Son is going to be different than dad. Daughter's going to be different than son,
Yes.
whatever. And I think that's where, we do try to help people pull the job apart and say, what is it that you need to do to be effective? And then how do you do those things? And some of those, again, personalities, tendencies, and strengths are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
What ultimately, like from the values discussion, is distilling down, it doesn't even really matter where it came from. It might be because of dad's upbringing that he deeply values these things. But the reality is that's who we are.
Sure.
And then if you want to check it, you ask your clients, is this who we really are?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. You check with your team, is this who we really are? Obviously, if you've got gaps in that's another issue to
Mm-hmm.
address.
Oh, absolutely.
Is wearing a mask to your clients
Yeah.
and then something different for your people experience?
I think something you unpacked that I want to put highlight on
Sure.
is that it's different being on the personal side, trying to draw those connections and be what you think your family wants to be versus you being the CEO. Like, as the CEO, you're the leader who sets the tone.
Right.
You're the leader who needs to identify who you are as an individual. And there's a level of acceptance that all of us have to go through in that family and private business space of, like, if you're going through succession and you can see that you're the next person up, there is certainly a value you place on how we're currently leading and what we're doing really well. But you also, one of the great interview questions that you can put back to the committee that's getting ready to nominate you as CEO is, are you going to be okay if I lead the way I want to lead as CEO? And that's it's a real gut check. If people aren't comfortable with that, then you could spend years struggling with that dynamic.
Right.
Decades dealing with that in an identity crisis.
And hopefully that is
with.
something that the departing CEO, if they're there for any transition, the board, whoever else is involved in that selection committee, they know, intuitively, things are about to change. This is a change for the organization. It's a great opportunity as that person comes in to help them be successful, is to share with the organization what we're so excited about our new CEO and what they bring that is new to the table, and celebrate those things. But I think sometimes the concern is that change is bad and that people might freak out, or they might get worried that, Mike's not going to lead the same way as his dad. And they get stuck wishing things didn't have to change.
Sure.
And so I do think that's where maybe it's a bit of a tangent, but is communicating what is different, embracing the differences and the strengths of this person.
Who's ready to lead when one of your top executives moves on or retires? If succession planning feels overwhelming, you're not alone. Many companies are left scrambling when key leaders leave unexpectedly. At Centennial, we bring over 50 years of executive placement expertise to help you confidently and confidentially navigate the topic and actions of succession. Don't wait for a crisis. Start building your succession strategy today at centennialinc.com.
In our session, part of the session, we had people do a behavioral assessment and say, do you know what's extraordinary about you? Don't try to squash that.
Right.
But I also think this is another attribute of being successful as any leader, CEO or any other leader in any place in the organization, is realize that your style shouldn't be about you. That the style of the leader ultimately, I believe, is about matching what your people need. So what your organization needs right now it might be something that's a bit of a stretch for you. But in this season, we need you to be more collaborative. And if you know that that's not your strength, you have a tendency to want to drive and make decisions, I think you got to be vocal about that. I am going to really work on being collaborative. Dad was more collaborative than me. It's not my strength. It's my non-dominant hand. But I recognize that's something that we need to do. It's something our team needs to do. And you lean into these things. But anyway, yes, it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
I think that's the other mistake that new CEOs can make is they make the job about them.
Yeah.
And it's just not. It never was.
That's not your role as the CEO. It's not about you. It's about the organization.
That's right.
That you're leading. Talk about you mentioned the one thing that's non-delegatable.
Yeah.
From a CEO's lens. What is that one thing that's non-delegatable?
Yeah.
And why? Why is that the case?
So our talk today was really identifying a lot of adversity facing leaders today and recognizing whatever it is, there's help out there. You can get help. But there is something that you really can't delegate. And that is making meaning out of your business, making meaning out of the experiences that your people have. When a new person comes into your organization, they decided for themselves that this was the best next step in their lives, not just their careers, but for the next season of their life, they're going to give it to you. And then something goes wrong. Or they find out the job was harder than they thought, or they make a mistake, or, there's something expected of them and suddenly, they were going to run their own thing and you know what, you had some regulatory change and now you realize, we're not going to actually launch that business. So I need you to come and be a follower and part of the company. We all deal with adversity and change. And unfortunately, most of those things we have a tendency to resist, that the natural wiring of our brain is geared around safety, survival, preserving energy, protecting ourselves. And if you realize every single person coming into your company every single day, the tenured ones and the new ones, are all wired to try to stay safe, what you need them to do is get out of their comfort zone and go climb a mountain, go do something steep and hard. And the only way they can consistently do that is if you are creating the belief that that is a good thing to do. And you create that belief by celebrating them doing it. You create that belief by connecting it back to the purpose of your organization. You create that belief by you doing it yourself. But so many leaders, what they want are results. And when you see anybody do anything that is not the shortest path to results, so often we can express our displeasure. And that might sound like, why did you do that? Or what were you thinking? Or you need to get it right next time. And our pursuit of results can have us suddenly overlooking the real job we have, which is to be a people leader, help our people be successful. I say that, the ultimate job of a leader is to win the hearts and minds of their people and help them succeed. And some people just nod and like, okay, yep, got it. So success. Wait. And then later they realize well, whose success? That's your next challenge as a leader.
That's right.
I mean, you're not just creating meaning out of their job. Yes, you're doing that. But in many cases, you're creating meaning for their life. What is the story they tell when they go home to dinner with their family? It's probably based on how you reacted to something that happened at work. And we can forget that there is no more powerful person in the life of an American right now than their boss. And everybody has a boss, ultimately up to the CEO. Now, the CEO, we might argue, has a boss too. You got a board of directors or you're still accountable. But day to day in that office, in that organization, the ultimate meaning maker is the CEO. And I think sometimes we're not conscious of the meaning that we're creating out of little situations, big situations.
How do you navigate this around? Like, I feel from having heard you speak 4 different times, there's a level of self-awareness when you're in the space that you and I are in that we hopefully both have, that we carry with us every day. Many leaders don't have that. So how would I evaluate, am I creating meaning? What do I look for that's indicators that I am not and that I might be?
Yeah.
What are some pulse checks I can put into that?
Yeah, I think behind humility, one of the number one attributes of a successful and effective leader is going to be curiosity. You have to seek it out. Nobody is going to come telling you that you are making negative memories for them.
Right.
Like,
And if you
are
go
scaring
ask,
me.
If you go ask, they're also not going to answer you.
No, everything's good, boss. Thanks,
yeah. Why is he asking this question? Yeah.
But you do have to ask.
Yeah.
And what you have to realize is, what we believe is the number one metric that you're looking for if you do any sort of structured asking. So whatever your company's listening strategy is, if you have an engagement survey, if you do team surveys, is the response rate. Silence is probably the loudest thing that is telling you have an issue.
Yeah.
If your response rate is below 50%, you have a major issue in your organization. Half or more of your people don't think it matters to tell you things. So I do think, again, that's probably a multi-layered answer. I think there are some formal things you need to do. It is good hygiene in order to make sure that you are connected to your people, is you probably need a listening strategy. And that says, on what frequency do we ask questions about how our people are doing? On what frequency do I ask how I'm doing? And I think that is something that lends itself better maybe to like one-on-ones, whatever your cadence is with your leadership team, but also your direct reports. But it's not, what could I do better? Because again, people aren't going to tell you. But I like to ask, what are 3 ways I could improve your life at work? Make it about them. And then when they start to surface like, well, I'm just not really clear what's important. You could help me by helping clear the decks. I'm exhausted. I'm so busy. That's a sign that you're not very clear. You need to level up your clarity, level up the alignment in the organization. Maybe you need to get a little bit more involved to know where are there conflicts in the business. So I think there's formal, anonymous listening. I think you need to do it. Even if you think, oh, I don't need to do that. I've worked with these people for a long time. We're a small team. I think if you have even 10, 20 people, you should occasionally put out a confidential survey and then share with them. What did you learn from it? And what did you hear? What did you not hear? And then I think you got to be consistent and relentless with asking, how could I help you be successful? And then reading between the lines is, what are you not getting from me?
Yeah, there's another question I'd love to have teams ask is, what barriers can I remove for you the next quarter, next 6 months that would help you be more successful?
Absolutely.
And you and I both also very much agree. Every time you say it, I'm like, exactly. You have to build up to this. There's a relationship building, trust building, because if you haven't ever asked, everyone's going to want to know, why is he asking? The other thing I would say, it's like, we love the right use of executive 360s or 360s. We've also seen them weaponized in so many organizations. So if a company comes to us and says, we want to complete a 360 for this one individual for this one reason, our answer is typically, no, not interested. But what you can do is do it for the entire peer group. And when was the last time you did it for yourself, right? You have to start with vulnerability. You can't just expect everybody to put it out there. And you also have to be careful how you deliver the language of a 360 or the language of what you learned from that anonymous survey, because, you almost need a coach alongside of you to help you prepare to deliver. Because there also can be times, I know if you asked companies where we've done that voice of team survey, some CEOs really struggle with the answers because it feels personal.
And this isn't fair. I'm just a human. I'm just a person just like you. And unfortunately, you're going to have to let that go. There is a burden.
No, you need to listen. You need to carry that burden.
Yes. You touched on a couple things too that I think are so important. We talk about when it comes to building trust, that is a skill. It is a learnable skill with a set of behaviors. And so it's important, I believe, that both CEOs and their leadership teams embrace the fact that if they haven't been taught that, there's a good chance they're missing some part of that skill set. So We teach the math and the marble jar. And the math comes from the trusted advisor. There's different versions of this out there. You guys may have something similar, some sort of a trust equation, or say these are the factors that drive trust up. These are the ones that drive it down. Do you know your tendencies and how you're doing in each one of those areas? There's an X factor that we kind of tack onto the trust equation. It says whatever your trustworthiness is, that is multiplied by your trusting. How good are you at trusting other people? How frequently do you demonstrate and give away trust? Because the least trusted person on any team is the one who trusts people the least. And so occasionally you might be new in that job and saying, we've been friends up to now, but now I'm your boss. And now I'm really watching. And now the board is holding me accountable. So therefore, I'm going to start holding you accountable. And people are, wait, what are you talking about? You don't trust me anymore? If you want to be trusted, you got to give trust away. Then you get to the marble jar, which is about the speed or the pace of trust. And this comes actually from Brene Brown's daughter experiencing it in elementary school. But Brene talks about the fact that building trust is like putting marbles in a marble jar. And you might do something incredible for someone, or you might do the subtlest little thing. But we believe we are trustworthy. And we believe when we demonstrate it, people should take us at our word. So if I do something trustworthy, I think, Mike, you should trust me. We've not known each other a long time. If I do 2 things, it's like, oh, well, clearly I proved it, or 3 or 4. But there's a jar in your soul that's constantly scanning, are you a safe person? And every time you prove it, I put one more marble in.
Deposit,
And eventually when that thing gets full, maybe I have trust for you. And you say, okay, well, how many marbles do you need? Well, that's not going to be a function of anything I do or you do. That's a function of how everyone else has treated you in your life. And for leaders to have the patience with their team to realize some people are going to trust you quickly. Some are going to trust you slowly. And there's probably not a lot you're going to do about it. That you are going to have to say and do things consistently 1,000 times, maybe 2 times. For some people, they're like, oh, yes, I love you. You're just like your dad. You're great. And for somebody else, it's the 1,001st time before I think maybe he's really legit. And again, as leaders, you come in with an agenda. You probably come in with a timeline. You're thinking about what you want to accomplish in your first 100 days or your first year. And it can be very frustrating when some people are not getting on board with you.
And it can be a challenge that holds a business back.
Right.
If it doesn't at some point. So there is a little bit of measurement that goes on there around, am I ever going to win the person over? I'm trying, right?
Yep.
I'm trying. But there's also comes a point that if we're not going to move forward on the same team and the same speed and the same pace and the same vision, depending on what level, other transitions have to happen. I mean, there's a lot of times where we do CEO succession plans, and I can guarantee a board that when this transition takes place and this individual's been in the role for 7 years, 27 years, 32 years, 40 years, others are probably going to exit within the first 18 months. It could be the entire leadership team. So have you anticipated that? Do you know, no, not our team, or we're well aware is what we want to hear. We're well aware. We've had that discussion. In fact, we also have a couple people who might be next leader up if the CEO decides that's what he wants to do or she wants to do. But having that vulnerable conversation, you can tell if they had their head up underneath the carpet or are they well aware of what's going on and how to lead the organization to the next generation.
Yeah, which goes back to another one of those parts about being the meaning maker for your business. Why are you in business and why are these people here? And if you think it is they are to give their blood, sweat, and tears to help you achieve your business objectives, they're here and you are to, you have an exchange, you have a implicit or explicit agreement. I give you money and therefore I get you to hit my results. You can also have a major problem. We talked about it today. We said, what's the eventual turnover rate? 100%. Every one of us, every one of our people eventually leaves our organizations. The organizations that are great are the ones that can transcend a single leader and keep going. Again, I think that's a big part of culture is strategy. But ultimately, everybody's going to leave. And when we want more for our people than from them, and you bring on a leader who says, I want more for you than from you.
Mhm.
And for some of you, I hope all of you realize that, and that the greatest opportunity for you to achieve your hopes and dreams is to stay. Awesome. I'm going to fight for you.
Mhm.
And some of you might realize you wanted this job.
Mm.
And I hope it's not going to be available anytime soon. So let's talk about what's it mean for you to achieve your hopes and dreams. My job is to help our people be successful. It's not to do the work,
Mhm.
which we also talk about as part of the identity
Right.
crisis they go through.
Absolutely.
It's like taking their hands off
Yeah.
the keyboard, off the machines, saying, wow, my job is to help people be successful.
We know that hosting the important meetings in the right space is a key component of great outcomes for you and your team. And because of that, I am excited that the Living Room is sponsoring the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. For over 12 years, the Living Room in Cincinnati has created truly intentional environments for everyone from Fortune 500 companies to small organizations and churches. Think stunning historical buildings, natural lighting, full on-site hospitality, and curated home-cooked meals that elevate every gathering. Because when your environment is right, your outcomes are better. Visit hellolivingroom.com/unconventional today and book your next meeting.
So talk a little bit about culture and strategy in today.
Yeah.
The dynamics of business, the ever-changing, there was a individual who we heard speak just a couple months ago, and his comment was, the only thing I know is that everything I'm talking to this room about between now and the next 59 minutes was what happened, what I heard last take place before I exited my car. Like, things are changing so rapidly to us as business owners, as organizations, in a global economy. So I want to lead culture and I want to lead strategy in an environment that feels so unknown and challenging.
Yeah.
What are you all experiencing with your clients in that regard?
Well, I think, first of all, if you bring up strategy and culture, you are, I think, in most people, raising a tension. We believe that the culture is sort of soft and squishy, and that's how people feel about the business. And the strategy is the hard thinking about where are we going and how are we going to win? How are we going to get there? And then you pile on all the famous quotes about culture eats strategy for breakfast and things like that. And it sounds like there is a tension, they're in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And I really see them as part of
One another.
Yeah, you could say, can you have a great high-performance culture without having a clear strategy? I'd say no. Like, can you have a high-performance culture is where people give you everything they've got. They're all in. And so you're getting discretionary and non-discretionary, every ounce of their skills and talents and energy. Yet we're not going to bother figuring out where are we going and how are we going to get there. Like, no, you got to have a sound, coherent strategy, communicate it clearly, and it needs to be known by all if you're going to sustain high performance in an organization and ask people to consistently get uncomfortable for you. Now, the flip side, can you have a great, winning, sustainable strategy without a great culture? And that's where I think you probably, maybe could for a long time. I don't think you can anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's partly because the war for talent has gotten to the extreme at this point where we're no longer making enough humans to sustain the growth of our businesses.
Right.
And so if your strategy includes growth, your strategy better have a very heavy dose of figuring out how do we win the hearts and minds of people. And then I think that's a big part of culture. So I do see them very tightly wound up. Like I have sort of drawn up what I call a high performance culture model.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with an aspiration. It says you can't have a high performing culture without a North Star, without something that won't change, that the organization believes is part of its identity and its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But then right below that, you need a plan. A high-performing culture needs a very coherent plan for where are we going, how are we going to win. That's strategy. But then below that, you got to have strong practices, and ultimately, you've got to have a healthy environment. So
when you talk about, I've heard you talk about journey to mastery.
Yes.
Quite a bit. Can we unpack that? Because you've also spent time not just studying high performance organizations, but also high performance athletes, I believe.
Yep. Soldiers and athletes.
Soldiers, military, and the journey to mastery, I think, is something I'd love to unpack for those listening.
I think if you got a pulse, I think it's relevant. So years ago, I had a business partner and we started a business focused on how do you activate the potential of a human? How do you help somebody achieve more of their goals and become high performing in their role? It was very individual focused. It was very results focused. And so a lot of our clients were focused on salespeople. But what we quickly learned from working with high performing salespeople is it transcended sales. It was part of everything. And it was their bosses. And then pretty soon we realized there were, again, if you got a pulse, then you have stamped into you somewhere a desire to be successful. And above that desire, what Maslow would have called self-actualization, he ultimately came about later and came back and said, you have a desire to even transcend yourself and orient towards something more meaningful about a bigger picture, a bigger game, the contribution to others. That's wired into every single person. So we were studying, okay, how do you tap into it? And originally what we believed was, borrowing a quote that's often attributed to Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. He says, so excellence then is an act, is a habit, not an act.
Okay.
So what we thought we were doing is studying the habits of high performance. So you want to be a high performer, we want to activate your potential. Let's look at the handful of things you need to consistently do and master to become great at what you do. And what we found is by first of all, driving for clarity, making sure they knew what they were, how often to do them, and how to do them right, we would then activate performance. And what we activated was shame, fear, guilt, failure. Didn't make any sense. So many people did not know the success formula that when they thought they saw it, this is what I need to do to achieve my potential, then all I need to do is do it. And that's when we discovered actually finding out what the thing is, the success formula, is a very small part of the pie. The big part of the pie is how do you do something consistently for thousands of repetitions? You know, what Anders Ericsson called the 10,000 hour rule, or some people attributed to him in his work. And that's not natural. So as much as human beings, we often think that we don't like change. I have plenty of data in studying 30,000 adults to say they don't like to do the same thing either. As people, we like to do what we feel like. We're very emotionally driven decision-making people. We're not always super rational. And if I said, hey, Mike, here's a few things. If you'll work on this and you become excellent at it, you'll be very successful. That will motivate you, our data would say, for about 6 weeks. And yet what I need you to do is probably 6 years. So that's what led us into the study of soldiers and athletes. We had somebody who coached both athletes and soldiers and helped people that were interested in going into special forces or trying to make a professional baseball team. He's a former professional baseball player. And he basically taught us what he'd learned about accountability and how do you get somebody to do something thousands of times. Well, we quickly learned it had nothing to do with baseball. And so we started talking to football players. It had nothing to do with the sport. We were concerned that it may have something to do with the ability to make $100 million. Like, that'll drive some behavior. And so we moved over to areas where they don't make a lot of money. And ultimately to Olympians. And then it was to soldiers. And what we realized is, wow, all of these principles are the same. There is a desire in a human being as they move up what Maslow called these hierarchy of needs. We all have in us this desire to become extraordinary and then for it to matter. And yet we can't get there on our own. So we started to only see after many interviews, after gathering data, after working with teams, the observations were very clear. Nobody achieves their potential alone. You need humans in your life. We found that former elite soldiers and athletes in the workplace demonstrated less self-discipline than non-former elite soldiers and athletes. We thought it was the person, or maybe they had the discipline trained into them. In fact, maybe it had it trained out of them. The only thing that we saw was the environment they were in. They say we are the average of the 5 people we hang out with the most. Well, these people hung out with 5 really, really hardworking, extraordinary humans that were on their path to achieve all of their potential. And suddenly they're selling real estate or insurance, or they're working in, mom and dad's company.
Yeah.
And all they kept saying to us was then or now.
Hmm.
We're asking about, tell me about your habits. Tell me about accountability. Tell me about how you stick with hard things. And then they would say, well, back then when I was on a real team or now? We realized it wasn't the individual, it was the environment. Who creates the environment? The leader. So ultimately we said, then what are the factors you have to create such an environment?
Yeah.
And captured that in the Journey to Mastery.
Okay.
That was a long explanation. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, it's really helpful. I think the whole story is really powerful. And how many leaders did you work with or research as a part of that work?
So we started with a study of 300 leaders, asking them what are the habits and behaviors that help them be their best. The study of soldiers and athletes included a small study. It was interview by interview, meeting former professional athletes, Olympians, and then into special forces soldiers. We segued that into a workplace study, where we took 25 people from 5 different companies and tracked their behavior for 12 weeks. We later extracted the 30 people from that group who had performed at a high level in the military or sports, and we thought they're going to set the bar and show us the best behavior, and it was exactly the opposite. And what they realized is they were lacking the culture of high performance. So as we got into more like what is that culture? It's extraordinary trust, first of all. So you want to create a high performance culture, you got to be a trust builder. Extraordinary clarity. We realized, okay, you can want clarity. If you're a leader and you think you're creating clarity by saying things over and over again, well, that helps. It's better than them forgetting it, but they might even be able to parrot it back to you and still not know what it means.
Not feel it.
And without trust, they won't ask you. And so trust has got to come before clarity. So that's really where the Journey to Mastery really starts. How do you build trust and clarity? Thought that was everything? Except in our study of leaders, we found that about 30% of their behaviors had nothing to do with work. They're personal. So we did the only logical thing, which was ignore it. Nobody was asking us about this. Oh, we didn't think anybody would pay us to talk about it.
Everybody tries to compartmentalize.
We're going to take date night, take that off the table, take your work off the table, take your bedtime routine off the table, like take all this stuff off the table. Let's focus on what you do at work with your people and with your clients. And we just focused on that relentlessly for about 2 years and had an executive coach hear this story. And she's like, guys, do you know what you've done? You've just taken all the sources of energy and renewal and power and taken it off the table. And all you're focusing on is the expenditure. You realize, wow, let's go back and have those conversations. Tell me more about date night. Tell me more about your workout. Tell me more about your morning routine, quiet time. You realize, wow, that's actually what fires a person up, gets them back to their values and principles, back to their purpose, so that they can re-enter that day focused on the needs of other people. And so that's when the Journey to Mastery suddenly added some more steps. We said the very first step, if you want to be extraordinary, you need margin. If you can't breathe, can't achieve. Same thing's true for your people. Can they breathe? If you want to be extraordinary, you need a mindset that says, I believe in what we're doing. I believe we can do it. I believe it makes a difference. A big belief mindset is learning about the impact of positive psychology, positive questions. How do I embrace struggle, conflict, and failure? The next one is you need a mission. You need a reason why beyond what the company is doing. It's not on our wall. It's in your heart. Who are you and why are you here? And do you realize that you can live out that purpose in any job, especially a job that's a purpose-driven company that cares about its people and wants to activate all their potential? So that's where the Journey to Mastery was a slow build. Today it's 7 lessons for high-performing teams. But it all starts with margin. And that starts with a leader. You got to model it.
A few of the areas that we hear from teams, every year we track lots of data to identify what's going on inside of organizations and not what do the leaders think is going on inside of organizations, but what do the people as a whole believes really happening inside of an organization. It's like, the first time we ever is as we built our models, our goal was to prove that we could take a different approach and have employees come back to their employers and say, thank you for investing in me versus thank you for telling me what you wanted me to learn.
Yeah.
Right? Two very different things. Two of the areas in the journey of mastery that we believe all teams are struggling with right now is trust and accountability. Right? Accountability is, accountability. Also, the more I study accountability, the more I experience accountability, the more teams that lean into conflict and confrontation and carefrontation and directness and not trying to protect people's emotion and set accountability, those teams win more.
Right.
Right?
Accountability is huge and hugely misunderstood.
Yes.
It is often weaponized. That whole business I was talking about where we were studying the soldiers, athletes, and trying to help people achieve their potential, the technology that we built was an accountability app. So we were essentially becoming accountability experts. Now, we were failing our way to that designation. It did not start out that way. But what we learned was accountability without trust creates fear. I even got to speak at a very renowned company that had extraordinary culture, and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, it's nice to meet you. I thought I hated you. Oh my gosh. Why? What did I do?
Share.
He said, my last company used your app, and they used it like a sledgehammer, like a weapon. You had to do your activities. You got a score for doing them, and you were accountable for your score. If they could ever prove that you lied about something you did, you'd be punished. I mean, accountability for so many people it's really just about the stick. I mean, you could say it's carrots and sticks, but they're not afraid of the carrot. They are afraid of the stick.
Yeah.
And so ultimately realized we cannot just put our technology in the hands of any leader in any team. We created an assessment. We started to assess the trust on the team first and say, if you lack trust, you won't have clarity. You need trust, then clarity, then you get to accountability. In the journey of mastery, the 7th step is accountability. I believe we need extraordinary accountability.
Yeah.
We called it stratospheric accountability. When we talk to professional baseball players, there is nothing that demonstrated accountability more than standing out right in front of tens of thousands of people and having them react to you doing your job. Visceral reactions. And so as much as we feared it, we knew we needed it. Sports psychologist Jim Layer says we all possess an infinite capacity for self-deception. And what we were interpreting that is, if you're not measuring it, you're not doing it. If we really deceive ourselves, then you need the real data. You need to measure, you need to track what you're doing, and then you make it visible to other people. It will surprise you that you're not doing the good stuff as often as you think, and that if you track the bad stuff, you're doing that more often than you think. But ultimately, we just needed a different model for accountability. And so we referred to it as positive accountability. Positive accountability starts with wanting more for your people than from them. And you can't really activate it until they believe that is true. If you believe that your dad wants more for you than from you, then you could take him things that you're struggling with. You could ask for advice. If he thinks he only wants things from you, and many of our people believe that we just want them to do their job and deliver the results and go home, they have a really hard time turning themselves over and being totally transparent with us. They're going to show us the good stuff, but not so much the bad stuff. And again, the only way I think you can really do that effectively in a company is you have to go first as the leader. You have to be more transparent. The accountability thing also, if it skews negative, and when I first heard Sean Accor talk about positive accountability, the power of happiness and culture, and he said, if you can get a brain operating at positive, it outperforms a brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. If accountability is a negative concept that stresses people, how is that contributing to them doing their best work? It's not. If you use it as a negative concept. So ultimately, that's why we put accountability last. Your people have got to have a really big reason why they're doing what they're doing. They've got to be taking care of themselves. They've got to have extraordinary clarity. They have got to realize that they probably can't or won't achieve their potential alone. And then at that point, they might be ready to say, hey, Mike, this is really important. Will you hold me accountable?
Yeah.
Can I show you what I'm doing?
And you talked about this morning, the power the boss has is equal to the power of a spouse.
Yeah.
On the mental health of said team members and team.
Yeah.
So like the rally cry is the impact we as leaders have on our people. And you hear it often. If you're following the Unconventional Leadership podcast, you hear this often. But that's part of it. Like we want to build intentional environments.
Yep.
You know, part of the unconventional for us is intentional, right? Intentional for what? Not just the business, but the people. And how do you make it a, perfect partnership where like, you know what? I'm going to unlock everything I see in you that I know is living inside of you. I can't tell you, even with the employees that I've led, the team members that I've led, where I've seen the potential they had and they were like, I don't know, I've never done that before.
Right.
I know, but I really think you can and you should, and I need you to. And I believe that gift I felt the same thing at times in my career. You know, we had a recent episode where we talked about with Bob Heil, CEO, retired CEO of KLH Engineers, now chairman and advisor and owner of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And he shared like, we need to put our hands on more people's shoulders and tell them that we see them and we believe in them. Right. So that the impact that a boss has, a manager has, is equal to an impact of a spouse or a, significant other.
Yes.
To the mental health of team. Do you want to share a little bit more there?
Yeah. And I think it's important that we broaden the application because it's often talked about specifically in the circles around mental health support at work. The study was done by UKG's Workplace Institute for Mental Health and Money. And in and of itself, it was a pretty surprising finding that nobody has a bigger impact on the health of the thoughts in someone's head than their boss and their spouse. I mean, the spouse doesn't really surprise you if you got one. That's a person you're spending like your life with. A partner was true too. So if you're not spoused up yet, it's like whoever you're doing your life with personally, you'd think has got the most influence in you. Oh, boss came in at exactly the same level. And I think a lot of us are not conscious of the fact that we wield an incredibly huge lever in the lives of our people. And it can even overcome a spouse relationship that maybe is hurting right now. And yet you continue to see the potential in someone. Again, I'm a fan of some of Maslow's work just because I think it's so profound and I see it sort of lived out in a lot of people that we're complicated. But that we all have a desire to be amazing and contribute in ways beyond ourselves. And he would say, yeah, I think there's plenty of evidence for that. And then somebody says, well, not her, not him. I got a couple of, C+ players. I'm just kind of keeping on the bench until I can find somebody else. And it's like, oh my gosh, yes, even her, even him, if they got a pulse, they have unimaginable potential. And why are you not seeing it? That's what we should be asking ourselves. Why are we not seeing it? There may be lots of reasons. Number one, maybe nobody's pointed out. We are largely the product of how we've been treated. And if they have been told, you'll never be as smart as your sister, are we surprised that they're not bringing out every thought they have? Like they need to be sometimes told. I think it's remarkable to see extraordinary performers and then find out they had to overcome incredible hardship in their life.
Yeah.
But somewhere in there was somebody who leaned into them and said, I see incredible potential in you.
Yeah.
Suddenly, they start to show it. I just think a lot of leaders might think, well, I don't want to overhype my people. I'll give them a big head or they'll leave. It's like, are you kidding me? Play a bigger game. I love Simon Sinek. He talks about the idea of an infinite game. If we look at this as an infinite game,
right,
and your job is to activate the lives and the potential in these folks, do you not think that you will earn a living in your finite game of your company? I guarantee you will.
Yeah.
And then If your reputation becomes you're a person who activates potential, you're a person who gets people seeing what's they didn't even know was possible in themselves, and some of them grow and leave you, there will be a line waiting for the chance to be your next protege.
Yeah.
It is the most brilliant talent strategy in the world. It's another one of my favorite tops is stop trying to retain your people.
Yep.
Just grow them.
Yep.
And most of them won't leave. And the few that do, you'll have a line to fill their spots. It is so brilliant and it's so simple. It's just not natural. And I think that's what you have to, that unconventional leadership is to realize like, wow, what's it mean to be intentional, extraordinary? But it might be different. It might be uncomfortable. It might not be what everybody else is doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. I love the thought around the end game is not just to reemphasize what you just shared. It's not to retain people and just hold on to them forever. It's to continue to invest in people.
Right.
To where that you or they may knock on your door one day if there's a great enough trust that says, you know what, I think it's time for me to click into my next chapter and I'm prepared for it. I'd love to study, Travis, the alumni networks of large, are they all large organizations? Not necessarily, but some of the largest organizations in the world have the most powerful alumni networks, where they want people to go out into the marketplace and profess what they learned. I have the pleasure now to be navigating a senior in high school, and we've been talking about as his college career starts to unfold. You know, I believe one of the best things with the pathway that he's pursuing in finance and economics and investment banking or venture capital, it's like, I never thought I'd say this, because I've spent my whole career in a small family business, a boutique family business. It's like, buddy, you have the potential to land at one of the largest companies in the world. And I know that may not be where you want to end up because, you know, he's been raised in a family business environment, but what a great story it tells for that to be you to be part of the alumni, right? In any organization you get attracted to. You may know you want to work for a boutique firm, a small organization. You might want to start your own venture fund as one of his, you know, he wants to start his own venture fund at some point. But boy, if you get an opportunity to land in one of these really large, you're going to learn so much, and hopefully you'll stay there long enough to get promoted a few times and experience what growth looks like in a larger organization. Then take that wherever you want. Then the world is wide open to you. Right. But the alumni networks, like of the Deloittes and of the Accentures, and like following what a career pathway people have with that type of alumni foundation, and that they treat,
and they know they're not going to keep them forever.
That's right.
Most, you know, some will make partner.
Yeah, they treat this as the alumni, like that mindset. I want to build powerful alumni.
Yes,
is playing into the infinite game.
Yes,
not the finite game of the goal you're trying to achieve with your immediate team.
Yeah, and I believe from a talent perspective, there are 5 days that I advise leaders on optimizing for the employee experience, but there's 2 that matter the most. And the one that we talked probably the most about is day 1. Day 1 is such a psychologically impressionable day in a person's life that you can change them. That it has the potential to be a top 10 most memorable day of their life. Because when you join an organization, everything in your world is new. You are so vulnerable. You don't know if you can trust these people. You don't know if you made a good decision. If it was 1,000 years ago, a new job is the equivalent of switching tribes. It is life or death. It is a very meaningful moment. And so if you haven't done this or you don't know this, there are steps that you can take to make a person's first day in a job extraordinary, and it costs you nothing. We need to make day 1 world-class. But the day that we don't talk enough about, that you just made me think about, is the last day. The last day echoes into eternity. So how somebody leaves when they leave your company, when they walk out on the last day, is probably etched onto their heart and their soul. And if they left feeling, regardless of what happened, I was disrespected, I was cheated, I was tossed aside, maybe for a number, for a performance issue, for just about anything other than a criminal act, you have potentially just created a terrorist for your company. when you could have created an evangelist. And so how people feel on their last day often does not change for the rest of their lives. And if they go away and it didn't feel good, it's never going to feel good because they're never going to come back and say, let's do this last day thing again. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about maybe the contribution I made and why you thought it was valuable that I worked here? Because I kind of think it was, but you'll never get that chance. So I used to say, I'd look at the odds and the averages. The average American works for a company for about 3.6 years. And so if they're coming out of school in their 20s, then, they should, after their average turnover, have another 30 years to work. And that's a lot of time that they could be building your brand or tearing it down. But if they leave mad, they don't keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even stop when they retire. It doesn't stop when they die because they tell their kids.
Yeah.
And so suddenly their kids hate your company.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh my gosh. So anyway, one of my favorite speakers is Andy Stanley, and he has said under many contexts, later is longer.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're thinking about which is bigger, now or later.
Right.
If later is longer, we got to figure out how to do that last day well.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a role to play for senior executives in their departing employees' lives. Just simply say thank you. Whatever happened here, that was a job.
Yeah.
Nothing is bigger than the importance of you as a person, of our relationship. If I can ever contribute to your future success, please call on me.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis, how would you define unconventional leadership?
Well, I think you, intentionally or not, you planted a seed, Mike, that it's hard for me to pull out. You said it's intentional leadership. So much of the work that I've done in the past about how do you build accountability, how do you help people perform, how do you activate potential, all of that has to do with being intentional. I think an unconventional leader is someone who realizes their job, their title, their role is not about them. Mm-hmm. That yes, they are blessed to have a personality and tendencies and gifts and talents, and it's not that they don't matter, but their job is to contribute to the success of others. And so I think an unconventional leader is extraordinarily others-focused. I think the other thing about the people who are extraordinarily others-focused is they must learn to care for themselves. Mm-hmm. Because so many others-focused leaders, pastors, nurses, teachers, they fry. Yeah. They burn out. And so an extraordinary leader, again, has to cultivate margin. That margin helps them maintain the positive mindset about who they are and why they're there, which is leading into helping them live out their mission. And so I guess if I was to sum it up, that unconventional leader is somebody who models and practices those foundational steps of leading self well in order to have the influence and the credibility to lead others.
Thank you for sharing. I have one last question for you. The passion that exists inside of you for what you do and why you do it, what are you hoping to transform in your organization and in your community and through your brand and through your family?
Well, ultimately, it's to be of service. And it's like, okay, so how can I be of greatest service? A friend once gave me the book, The Go-Giver. And I identified with it because the character starts out as a go-getter. Mm-hmm. And I took a lot of pride in growing up being told, you're such a go-getter and learn everything and accomplish everything. And then to realize I had the math wrong is like, how can you make the greatest contribution to the world? Positively impact as many people as much as you can. And so I look for where there are levers in society today. And I believe the greatest lever in our society today is the workplace. I think it's the most powerful institution in the world. It's where we spend the majority of our time. And all of the data says it's not great. It's a place where people grind and suffer and survive. It's a place that they go home and complain about to their families. That employee engagement has never been high. Yeah. It's just a matter of how low it is.
Right.
Is it up a point, down a point, but it's pretty bad. And so if we can redeem the workplace to be a place where people go and get stronger, They become more aware of themselves and their gifts, more aware of what they could do in life, not just at work. Equip people with purpose, sharpen their skills, connect them with other human beings, make their life matter. Then the workplace, I think, becomes this healing environment where you grow humans, where ultimately, I even, maybe it's a little bit far-fetched, but I believe we can turn the corner on this declining birth rate thing. If you said, well, the workplace is a place where you get stronger, you get connected, you get purpose, then I think you're going to be more apt to want to share that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe want to have a family, maybe have the resources to start a family. Not everybody should, not everybody has to, but I just think, wow, the workplace right now is a pretty bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
And the greatest lever in the workplace is the boss. So let's be better bosses.
Thank you so much for joining us in this episode. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this episode. I do get the exciting news to share that episode 249, which will be the next episode after this one, I'm having the pleasure of inviting my father back on the podcast. It's been quite a few years since he's joined, and we'll have the opportunity to dive into this family business talk a little deeper, talk about legacy, talk about the values and the impact that we've been having for 50 years. We'll be having him on right as we wrap up our 50th year anniversary. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this community. Travis, thank you for being a part of this conversation
Thanks for having
today.
me, Mike. Awesome.
It's a real
Thanks.
pleasure.